is Gillespie, and we've been looking at solving inequalities with rational numbers. Let's look at solving some inequalities with fractions instead. And pretend that I've got a problem, let's see here, 2 over negative 0.4. And we're going to say that that is greater or equal to negative r over 0.8. Now, the first thing, there's a couple of questions I want to ask myself, and the first is, what do I want to do in the long run? What's my overall goal? My overall goal is to get my variable r alone by itself. So I've got to isolate r. The second point is I want r, I'm noticing that I have a negative fraction here. I want r to be positive in the long run. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the first steps here are, what is the operation that's happening to r? Well, it's being divided by 0.8. So forget about this negative sign for a second, and let's just look at 0.8. How do you undo division? You do the inverse. So the way to do that, we're going to multiply both sides by 0.8, and that's going to undo this division. So write out 0.8 times 2 over negative 0.4. And let's fix that 4. That's an ugly 4. There we go. Rework the 4. And that is greater or equal to negative r over 0.8 times 0.8. So once you get to this point, you start to notice that some things cancel out. We find some common factors in other areas. So obviously, these guys are going to cancel out, and 0.8 and 0.4 have a factor of 4. So I'm going to factor them out, and I'll end up with 1 on this side and 2 on this side. And actually, it's not 1, but 0.1. This is not 2, it's 0.2. So now I've got 0.2. Let's just rewrite the entire inequality again. So now I have 0.2 over, I'm going to say it's over 1 because it is. It's written as a fraction. And that is being multiplied by 2 over, we'll do negative 0.1, and that's greater or equal to negative r. Okay, so from this point, multiplication, all you do is multiply the numerator straight through and the denominator straight through. So multiply numerators, and then multiply denominators. And what you end up with, well, 0.2 times 0.2, 0.2 times 2, you're going to get 0.4 over 0.1. Don't forget the negative. I'm going to put this negative out on the side now. And that's greater or equal to negative r. So let's just look at the decimals for a sec. Let's look at the negative symbols here. And one thing we can ask ourselves is, what's happening to r here? It's being multiplied by a negative symbol, and hidden in between the negative symbol and r is the number 1. So negative r is the same thing as saying you've got negative 1 times r. So how do you undo the multiplication? Well, you divide both sides. I'm going to scratch these out. You're going to, working down here, divide both sides by negative 1, which will undo the negative symbols on both sides. But again, when you divide or multiply inequalities by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So now you end up with 0.4 over 0.1, flipping the inequality symbol, is less than r. And the final step here, 0.4 over 0.1, that ends up being 4, is less than or equal to r. Or r is greater than or equal to 4. Let's look at one more problem here. Another one that might stump some people, but it won't be difficult to figure out now, is negative f is less than 6 over 7. Okay, again, the first thing you want to do, you want to get the variable, you want to isolate it, get it alone, and you want to get rid of the negative symbol. You want it to be a positive variable. So f, you want it to be positive. Well, how do you get it to be positive? And again, let's go back and look at the last problem. I asked, well, what is negative r? What's another way to represent negative r? You can say negative 1 times r. So down here with negative f, another way to represent it is negative 1 times f is less than 6 over 7. So how do you get f by itself? How do you isolate it? You divide both sides by negative 1 to undo the multiplication of negative 1 and f. These guys will cancel out. This will become f is less than negative 6 over 7. This became less than the, actually, the inequality switches to greater than, because when you divide or multiply inequalities on both sides, it flips the inequality sign. So f is actually greater than negative 6 over 7.